Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the SimNFL show. Real talk about fake sports. I am your host and commissioner. You can call me Pierce. Today, we're going to be covering the Week 8 action of the Pro Sim over at SimSN. If you're unfamiliar, come check us out on the website and on Discord. We would love to have you. As always, we'll cover all of the stats and summaries from the most recent week's action, culminating in my choices for the players of the week. We'll do a quick injury update and look at where the NFL standings are currently. And then today's feature is on the current, most recent trade frenzy. The trade deadline is not until next week, the end of day on the 22nd, but there were a flurry of big trades that I want to cover and talk about in detail. Also talk about potential buyers and sellers as we reach that deadline. And then, as always, we will preview the upcoming week of action for Week 9. So, let's go ahead and dive right in. On Thursday night, had a very close game between the Colts and the Bears. Bears scored on their very first drive. Gerald Lewis finding tight end Nick Evans for an 18-yard touchdown. Early in the second quarter, they added to that lead. Lewis passing to Pat Flexen for a 45-yard touchdown. That made it 14-3. In the second quarter, Indianapolis finally put together a big drive to close the gap, 84 yards in 8 plays, culminating in Gary Freitag finding William Weber for a 15-yard score. Then in the second half, Indianapolis would block a punt, which would set them up nicely for a 9-play drive, Freitag to Ellswick from a yard out, giving the Colts their first lead of the game at 17-14. They would get a stop, and Freitag would immediately go to work again, find Ellswick again. This one was a 43-yard touchdown to extend that lead. Colts scoring twice in under 4 minutes there. After a Chicago field goal, Indianapolis ran about 5 minutes off the clock on a long non-scoring drive. Chicago got the ball back at their own late in the game, down 7. They drove to the Colts' 30-yard line, but were stopped on 4th down, and Indianapolis was able to run out the clock and preserve the win on Thursday night. Gary Freitag looked excellent, 13 completions, 147 yards, and 3 touchdowns, as well as 87 yards on the ground. Pair of touchdowns. A pair of those touchdowns going to Daniel Ellswick. Gerald Lewis, 158 yards passing and 52 yards rushing for the Bears. Pat Flexen with a big day as well, but not quite enough as the Colts come away with the win. There was a surprising and bizarre ending game between the Bengals and the Eagles, in which the Eagles dominated in just about every facet of the game except for the final score. Eagles also scored on their very first drive. Aaron Poole had a 40-yard run early that set up Daquan Badgley for a 2-yard touchdown run. Missed the extra point, made it 6-0. Eagles would add a field goal on their second drive. A promising third drive was killed by an offensive holding penalty. And then their fourth ended in Cincinnati territory, but they were unable to score. And after that fourth drive ended in a punt, Cincinnati immediately gave the ball back on a Gurevich interception. 7 plays later, Poole passed this one to Badgley for a 2-yard touchdown, making it 16-0 Eagles. By that point, the Bengals had 4 drives. They had gained a total of 6 yards, 3 punts, and a turnover. Just before halftime, Bengals finally drove the ball. They got all the way to the Eagles' 1-yard line, where it was 1st and goal, but they only had 7 seconds left in the half, so they went for the points and kicked the field goal, going into the half down 16-3. Things mostly picked up where they left off in the third quarter after a few punts either way. Gurevich finally broke through. He found Campoverde for a 46-yard strike. That put them in position for another field goal, making it 16-6. Then an Aaron Poole interception gave Cincinnati a golden opportunity, starting a drive on the Eagles' 31. They proceeded to have a solid pass play eliminated by an offensive pass interference. Then they committed a false start. Then they gave up a sack and had 2 incompletions. So after starting at the Eagles' 31, they punted from their own 43, which was kind of the day the Bengals were having. Still down 10 in the fourth quarter after a punt pinned them at their 8-yard line. David Taylor took over. He broke off a run for 56 yards. Bengals were then a couple plays later aided by a roughing the passer penalty that gave him a free 15. Ultimately, Taylor found his way into the end zone from 7 yards out, which made it 16-13. And just like that, it was a game. Well, the Eagles woke up a bit. They drove 13 plays, 72 yards, most of that on the ground. But they ended up a yard short of a first down on the Bengals' 3-yard line, had to settle for a short kick, which meant it was still a one-score game when Barry Madruga returned the ensuing kickoff all the way to the Eagles' 39-yard line. So facing a short field, David Taylor got another great run of 22 yards, and then on 3rd and 6, Gurevich found tight end John Hendrickson for a 12-yard touchdown. The extra point was good, and somehow, someway, the Bengals had the lead. The Eagles got off 3 plays on their final drive before Poole threw a final interception, sealing the loss. So yeah, a bizarre ending. The Bengals somehow ending up on top. David Taylor, 149 yards and a big touchdown. Pair of touchdowns for Daquan Badgley of the Eagles as well, and a pair of sacks for Michael Cuevas. But Eagles somehow losing this game at the very end. It was a surprisingly close game between the Ravens and the Saints, another game where the final score doesn't really tell you the entire story, which is why I'm here. First half ended 3-3. The team spread around 4 sacks and 4 interceptions, 3 of those from David Chop, killing any offensive drives. But actually, late in the second quarter, before halftime, that third interception from David Chop gave the Saints the chance for a 52-yard drive in 8 plays, ending in a Milton Evans touchdown for an early lead. Baltimore went 3 and out, kicked a short punt, and then in one play, Josh Bassett ran a 53-yard touchdown run. A big play for him. And just like that, the Saints were up 17-3. On the next possession, Chop had a 22-yard run and aided later by a unnecessary roughness call on cornerback Stanley Alvarez of the Saints. Set Chop up for a 7-yard touchdown pass to Edwin Garcia to close the gap. After a trade of punts and excellent Saints punt return, led them to start a drive on the Baltimore 37. That turned into a field goal and a 20-10 lead. It was 20-13 late in the third quarter when Landrum threw a critical interception that was returned by Baltimore down to the Saints' 10-yard line. A couple plays later, Chop scrambled into the end zone from 5 yards out, which tied it at 20. In the fourth quarter, after a failed Ravens 4th down attempt, the Saints had an excellent opportunity to get back into the lead before Landrum's 3rd interception at the Baltimore 30-yard line killed any hopes of that. And then in the final 10 minutes, we got a Baltimore field goal to finally take the lead. The Saints went 3 and out. Baltimore in the next drive, Chop found Garcia again for a 56-yard gain, leading to a David Taylor touchdown. Saints went 3 and out again. Baltimore got the ball back, went 57 yards in 7 plays for a Taylor touchdown run. This time, first one was a catch. Saints went 3 and out. Baltimore drove 7 plays and kicked a field goal. So very quickly, the Ravens put on 20 additional points, leading to their impressive final score. New Orleans, after that field goal getting them to 20 points, the Saints had 9 drives in the second half. They ran 28 plays for a grand total of negative 11 yards. They had exactly 1 first down that was granted to them on a penalty. Otherwise, it was 7 punts, all on 3 and outs, and 2 interceptions. So Saints hit a wall there in the end. Ravens were able to recover, put on a lot of points in a scoring burst in the fourth quarter, come away with the 40-20 victory. Silver lining for the Saints, Kenneth Wheat had 3 pass breakups and 3 interceptions, giving him the current league lead in interceptions with 8 so far on the season. The Falcons had a big day upsetting the Panthers 26-14. The 2 stories in this game were the Falcons defense and Rafael Rosario. So Atlanta actually drove to the Carolina 21 on their very first drive, but Padilla threw an interception to Gilberto Santana, so no points for them. It was still scoreless in the first quarter when Rafael Rosario took a Carolina punt, returned it all the way to the 10-yard line, then 2 plays later caught a 6-yard touchdown pass, giving the Falcons the initial lead. And then just before halftime, with the Falcons still pitching a shutout on defense, Rosario did it again, returned a punt to the 28-yard line, and then, in one play, caught a 28-yard touchdown pass. And it was 14-0 for the Panthers. 14-0 for the Falcons at that point. In the third quarter, a link interception set up the Falcons at the Carolina 18-yard line. A third down sack was negated by defensive holding, so it helped them drive all the way down to the 1-yard line where the drive stalled, but they were able to extend the lead with a field goal. So 17-0 at that point. Late in the third, a Padilla interception set up Kelvin Dupree's 7-yard touchdown run, so the Panthers finally got on the board. And then in the fourth quarter, down 20-7 at this point, Carolina put together their best drive of the game, 64 yards in 13 plays, leading to another Dupree touchdown run, this time from 5 yards out. That made it 20-14 with 8 minutes to go, so the Panthers were in striking distance. After 2 strong defensive plays, it looked like the Falcons could be on the ropes with a 3rd and 11, but Padilla found Richie Igwebuike for a 52-yard catch and run off a short pass. That led to a Michael Fulmer touchdown run and the final score. So the Falcons, with the big upset, they sacked Dakota Link something like 8 times, and again, on the strength of defense and special teams plays, able to come away with the win in this one. Rosario, again, 109 yards from scrimmage, plus a whole bunch of yards in the punt return game. Marco Everett with 5 tackles for loss and 4 sacks. Adrian Gerner, 4 pass breakups and an interception. All those to lead the Falcons to the victory. The Titans made it 2 losses in a row for the Packers, defeating them 27-21. By the time Green Bay got a first down that wasn't off a penalty, the Titans had already scored 2 field goals and led 6-0. But Green Bay was able to take the lead despite having their offensive woes in the second quarter when Leon Payne picked off a screen pass and ran it back 31 yards for the big man pick 6. That put the Packers up 7-6 early. But Tennessee was able to come back and retake the lead before half. Key play there was Wayne Reimer connecting with Jamie Murray for a 49-yard gain, and then throwing to Joseph Kale for a 2-yard touchdown. In the third quarter, a Garibay interception was returned all the way to the Packers' 10-yard line. Kale ran it in a couple of plays later. That made it a 20-7 lead for the Titans. It was 20-10 later in the third when another Garibay interception led to a Wayne Reimer touchdown run from 24 yards out. That made it 27-10, and it looked like the Titans were going to run away with it. But the Packers did still have a little bit of magic left. With just about 6.5 minutes to go in the game, Garibay finally broke through the defense, found Ramek Phelps for a 49-yard gain to his tight end, and then Carl Frost ran it in from 23 yards out. Packers actually went for 2 at this point and made it. So it was still a 2-score game at 27-18. Titans went 3 and out. Green Bay got a punt return all the way to the Tennessee 35. They couldn't gain any yards from there, but they did manage a 43-yard field goal, so it was 27-21. Tennessee went 3 and out. And after the punt, the Packers had 1 second left on the clock to run a single play from their 40-yard line. Unfortunately, they were not able to find one more miracle to get them into the end zone on that last play, and the Titans held on to win. So dominant Titans performance that nearly slipped away at the end, but they were able to hold on to it. Wayne Reimer, 122 yards passing, 64 yards rushing. Joseph Garibay, 4 interceptions on the day. Green Bay only managed 315 yards of total offense, and the Titans actually won with even less, 243 net yards from scrimmage, and the Titans defense doing the job in this one. On Sunday night, I had a big game between the Browns and the Cowboys, with the Browns winning at home 30-10. Browns took an early 10-0 lead before the Cowboys could even get a first down. Cowboys' best drive was in the second quarter, off a short punt, 6 plays, 55 yards, leading to a Vladimir Dawson 10-yard touchdown run. But before the half, the Browns would respond with a score of their own. James Rivera actually running one in from 13 yards. Browns led 20-7 at the half and were able to coast from there. Big day for Bryce Torres, 4 pass breakups and an interception, going one-on-one with Christopher Lee and doing a good job taking him out of the game early. Edwin Shabala did have 12 catches for 118 yards for the Cowboys. Jesse Knoll, a pair of interceptions in that one. Big story there, Dallas went 5 of 13 on their third downs, and 4 of those 5 conversions came at the end of halves when they ran out of clock before they could score. Meanwhile, Cleveland dominated time of possession and went 10 of 18 on third down, able to string together long drives and lean heavily, and I do mean heavily, on Juan Mora. 54 touches for Mora, over 250 yards of offense, and a pair of touchdowns, leading the Browns to the big win. For the rest of the league scoreboard, Miami put up 40 on New England. Hammonds had a great day, 22 of 33, 404 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Jacksonville got by Buffalo, 23-10. Ryan Peterson had a great day on the ground. Another heavy load, 45 carries for him, 144 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Washington dominated San Francisco, 38-3. Stephen Tabbert had a trio of touchdowns, plus 228 rushing yards. Houston put up a big day on the Minnesota Vikings, winning 48-13 for their 4th victory of the season. Ryan Johnson had 173 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Nebel had 141 rushing yards and a pair of touchdowns as well, all on the ground. Denver, another big rushing team, beating Pittsburgh 45-20. Hugh Kahn with 4 rushing touchdowns as well as 140 yards on the ground. Chargers put in a strong performance, beating Las Vegas 33-14 in a key AFC West divisional matchup. The Chargers had 3 players gain more than 100 yards rushing. Tavecchio with 128, Aguilera with 113, and James Carter with 107. So a trio of rushers over 100 for the Chargers in their win. Seattle defeated Arizona 20-7. Clayton McGee, 177 yards on the ground and a pair of scores. And then on Monday night, the Rams handled the Giants 37-20. Philip Avila, 39 of 52, 503 passing yards and 4 touchdowns with no picks. So that leads us to our players of the week. Got to shout out Avila, as I just did, 500 yards total and 4 touchdowns. And then Juan Mora and Hugh Kahn, great rushing days for the 2 of them. And then Scott Baldwin of the Rams. I know I'm double dipping on Avila and Baldwin, but it's not every day your receiver has 15 catches for 303 yards and a score. So got to give him credit where credit is due. On the defensive side, a trio of defensive tackles with great performances. Marco Everett of Atlanta with 4 sacks. Juan Zuniga of the Jacksonville Jaguars also with 4 sacks. And then Leon Payne of the Packers, 3 TFLs, a sack, and that big pick 6. Also got to shout out Kenneth Wheat of the New Orleans Saints, showing up big in a loss, 3 passes defended, and 3 interceptions on the day. So, congratulations to those 8 players on being named my Players of the Week. As for the injuries in this week, it seems like the bad luck has really fallen heavily on 3 teams. Dallas still with Bradford and DeWitt injured, and then Miguel Robertson strained a rotator cuff, so he will also be out, missing serious time. For the Chargers, both Alexander Williams and young Denoris White injured. They'll be out 3 and 6 weeks respectively. Patriots still missing Larry Arwood and now Alejandro Castellanos. Pulled a hamstring. He will be out 4 weeks as well. Pittsburgh still waiting for Melvin Adams to return to his guard position. His strained rotator cuff will take another 4 weeks to recover. Keep in mind, we just finished week 8, so there are 10 weeks left in the season to give you some context on the length of these injuries and what they mean for these teams. So with those results, here's where we stand in the AFC. Dolphins still with a commanding lead of 4 games in the East. Titans putting on an impressive show in the South at 6-2, although everyone else is at 500. So a lot still to be decided in the South. Browns have extended their lead to a game and a half at 5-2 over the 500 Steelers and Bengals. And then it is a 3-team race going strong in the West. Denver at 6-2 and with key head-to-head victories. And now the Chargers passing up the Raiders as well. Both teams at 5-3, but Chargers now with the head-to-head victory and the tiebreaker. Still a lot of football left to be played, but some great division races shaping up here. Similarly, in the NFC, we have Washington with a strong lead over the 4-4 Cowboys. But the race in the South has tightened to just a half game with the Falcons' big victory, 6-1 versus 6-2 there. Falcons also with the tiebreaker in hand. Packers going strong in the North, 2.5 game lead with them sitting at 6-2, only team above 500. Similarly in the West, LA well on their way to another division title, 7-1, leading by 4 games. 4 games over the Cardinals, 3.5 over the trailing Seahawks. So, there were a flurry of big trades last week, kicked off by the Dolphins making a move for Jamie Ramirez, and then a lot of teams followed, either not wanting to be left behind or not realizing that the trade deadline wasn't until the 22nd. Regardless, gave us a lot to talk about. So, Dolphins moved a second-round pick in the upcoming draft and a couple of players for Jamie Ramirez, who made an immediate impact in these most recent week's games. Bears parting with the star tight end for what looks to be a low second in the upcoming draft. Not to be outdone, the Broncos swung a major trade with the Rams, sending Darrell Lee, 88 overall strong safety, to the Rams for a big haul, including first and second round picks in the upcoming draft, a 2027 fifth, and a pair of players as well. We will later see what they use those picks for. They also sent their first, a year from now, in 2027, to division rival, the Kansas City Chiefs, for edge rusher Ramon Eubanks. He will be joining the Broncos in exchange for their 2027 first rounder. Not to be outdone, the Jets and Bears made a trade, so the Bears immediately took that second they got from the Dolphins, packaged it with a couple other picks, making a move for Rafael Caceres, the cornerback for the Jets. Also a low 6 coming back originally from Carolina via the Jets as well. Of course, the Commanders, always in the trade market, moved a 7th round pick that they got from the Broncos, and an outside linebacker. They got back their own fifth in the 2026 draft that they had previously traded to the Chargers, and also 33-year-old receiver Charles Brown in that trade as well. Commanders also sent a pair of fifth-round picks to the Vikings for 34-year-old cornerback Richard Lupo and then center Darren Willard. This caused a bit of an outcry at the price for Willard, but the Commanders pointing out that they don't really have a way to pay him. This is basically a one-year rental, and the Vikings pointed out Willard had been on the trade block and hadn't gotten any other offers. So you can't judge an offer you don't get. Commanders put up a couple of fifths, and the Vikings were eager to make that trade. Did you think we were done? We are absolutely not done. The Broncos took that first and second round pick of the Rams, sent a 2027 sixth rounder as well over to the Chargers for two of the Chargers' big players in contract years, Edwin Carter and Gordon Wilburn. So the Broncos picking up another strong safety to step in for Lee, and then using the picks from that Lee trade to get Wilburn as well. Meanwhile, Vikings made another trade, this one with the Panthers. A lot of players moving. Panthers also sending a third this coming draft and a fifth in the next draft to get these players, particularly Michael Vega and Kenneth Begull on the line there, coming to the Panthers. So, with all that said, here's sort of how it looks to be going. Miami Dolphins, definitely buyers, getting things started off with Ramirez and immediately putting him in the lineup, giving Hammonds another option for his passing game. The Rams going in big on Darrell Lee with their top two picks in the next draft. So a big acquisition for them. Commanders adding 3 veterans to their roster, hoping to make the most of the last bit of their championship window. And then the Broncos, still buyers, because even though they moved Lee, they repackaged those picks they got for him into another very good strong safety, as well as a middle linebacker, and then moving their first the following year for an outside linebacker as well. So big upgrades in the middle of that defense for the Broncos. On the selling side, we have the Chiefs moving one of their best defenders for a first-round pick in a couple years. The Chargers are ultimately the beneficiaries of those Rams first and second, going first to Denver and then to them. Chargers bulking up on picks, and it looks like moving veterans in the wake of upcoming extension season, making room for Aguilera's big extension. Presumably, we knew they couldn't pay everybody, so they're getting the value they can before those players move on. Minnesota adding a couple of fifths for a couple of veteran players. And then the Bears, little hard to judge. It's not that they're completely punting on the season, but they did pick up Caceres and a third, moving their tight end Ramirez. So more selling than buying. Again, it's not a fire sale in Chicago, but just with them at 3 and 4 seems to be kind of where they're moving on the season, moving some assets, stocking up on some younger players and some picks. But yeah, trade deadline is coming up. It'll be a week from when this video comes out on the 22nd. End of day on Tuesday. Keep in mind, if you have a player who is a free agent and ultimately leaves your team, you could be eligible for a comp pick, not in 26, but in 27. Just something to consider as you go through your trade evaluations in this last coming week. So here is where the trade chart stands currently. A couple of things to note. We have 4 teams with multiple first-round picks now. Arizona, who has theirs, and Denver. Detroit, who has theirs, and the Saints. The Chargers now have a pair of first-round picks. They don't have their own, but they have the Rams and the Steelers. And then the Giants have their pick and Tennessee's first-rounder as well. Teams currently outside the first round, as I just mentioned, Denver, New Orleans, Pittsburgh, and Tennessee. Some other teams stocking up on draft capital. Vegas, they have their first and second and 2 additional seconds from the Chargers and the 49ers, which that stands to be a very good pick, high up in the second. So Vegas with a significant amount of draft capital there. And then got to shout out Minnesota, their own first and second. They have Carolina's third, although they traded away their own. And then they currently have 6 total picks in the 4th round. They have their own and a bevy of others. Will they use them? Will trusting their scouting? Will they package them to move up for someone? Remains to be seen, but Vikings giving themselves a lot of options going into the 2026 draft with those top 3 pick and then 6 total 4th rounders. I will, of course, keep this chart up to date as we move toward the trade deadline. And once everything is finalized, we can start taking a closer look at what those draft picks will cost once we finish the season and the draft order can be established. And then comp picks will be added and things like that. So more to come on that. But for now, here is where the pick ownership stands. So looking ahead to week 9, we start things off in a primetime game on Thursday night with Kansas City going to Philadelphia for an interconference matchup. Then Sunday at noon, big game, Denver goes to Cleveland to play the Browns. Browns are fresh off a victory over the reigning NFC champs. Now we'll see what they can do against the AFC champs. Also Sunday at noon, we have a great divisional game, Green Bay at Detroit. Big battle in the NFC North. And then in the afternoon time slot, another great divisional game, Washington will be at Dallas. Dallas looking to bounce back, this time at home, but against another strong opponent. And then the Giants will be going to Vegas to face the 5-3 Raiders. On Sunday night, we have Buffalo going to New York to face the Jets. And then we finish things on Monday night with Carolina going to Cincinnati to play the Bengals. 2 teams tight in their division races and looking to move on up. So a great slate ready for week 9. Look forward to watching those games with you. But that is everything I have for today's edition of the SimNFL show. Thank you so much for stopping by and listening. And as I say to all our users in all of our sims, good luck and have fun.